Anyway, let's look at a few news articles before I do some demos tonight. So the CFTC, which is the Commodities Agency, has declared Bitcoin and Ethereum commodities, which is what the cryptocurrency community wants them to be, because commodities are not very regulated, like gold. And if that's true, then, and the prices all went up, probably as a result of that. However, the Securities and Exchange Commission is continuing to call it a security. And if that's true, then there are all kinds of financial disclosures and stuff required, which the cryptocurrency community is trying to avoid. So now the two different US government agencies are contradicting each other and both claiming to own these things. So it is not clear at all what the rules are and who's going to end up regulating it. There's OpenSSL had the Heartbleed flaw in 2014, which was really momentous. And just like then, OpenSSL is built into so many critical projects that they give you warnings when there's a security flaw. And now they say November 1, in a few days, they're going to release a critical vulnerability and a patch in a new version. And they make it sound really bad. It's going to, the vulnerability discloses the contents of server memory, potentially revealing user details, and potentially exposing private keys to compromise. So this sounds just as bad as Heartbleed. That's what Heartbleed did. So there'll be a new version coming out, and then after that, there will probably be public statements of how it works. But
Microsoft a couple months ago said that somebody was trying to modify the OpenSSL libraries?
I don't remember that. He said Microsoft said someone's trying to change the OpenSSL libraries. I don't remember that. It's possible. But this sounds like it's just the usual kind of vulnerability introduced by flaws in their coding, not a malicious thing added. So it really looks like Elon is going to buy Twitter tomorrow. He visited it this week. Went in there, took a picture of him carrying a sink into there. He took some took the weight loss drug that's hard to get, the new one that's all advanced, that they're trying to reserve for diabetics, and you can see it worked. He lost a lot of weight. But here he is carrying a sink into Twitter as some kind of joke, entering Twitter headquarters, let that sink in. So anyway, he's going there, and he's, of course, made it clear he's going to really shake up Twitter a lot. Going to fire 3/4 of the staff and change everything and make it into a profitable company. Someone says, I don't think very many users are using OpenSSL version 3X. Oh, well, that would be good. They're still using an older version, maybe? That could be. That would be good because I guess they're vulnerable to something awful.
I think a lot of developers use that library, right? OpenSSL.
Yeah, but not this particular version. It's only certain versions that are vulnerable. And what Zhu said was not very many people are using this particular version, and that would be good.
Is it the latest version or something?
Yeah. And so anyway, they're surprising. The metal conducts electricity because the atoms are in a nice regular array, and the electrons can just flow from one to the other without much resistance. But they found a new material where they just put a few atom molecules in plastic, and you end up with something flexible like plastic, but that conducts electricity well. And this has not previously existed. And the existence of this material means you can do a lot of interesting things, like make clothing that conducts electricity, which has been a science fiction dream for a long time, and flexible products, flexible plastic that has good conductivity. So this may open up the world to more wearable computing and such. Google Cloud Shell, I've used it a few times. If you have Google Cloud machines, you can make them in the graphical user interface on the website, but you can also open a Cloud Shell console and execute Unix-like commands in the shell. And what someone found is you can get a persistent Trojan there because it spins up the Cloud Shell in an ephemeral way in a container every time you use it, but there is a location where you can have persistent storage. And in that location, you can put scripts, and you can make a script that phones home and put it there. Like here's a script that installs Netcat and phones home. So they did that. The problem is, of course, it won't launch when people just launch their virtual machines. It would only launch when they actually open the Cloud Shell. And most people don't open the Cloud Shell very often. So it's more of a stunt than anything else. But it does show a sort of interesting way to exploit that. And now individuals can get code signing certificates for $50 a year, which is a pretty good deal. I'm thinking I might do it. I've got one now that I had to go through a lot of work to get, and it'd be kind of hard to renew. So anyway, then you can sign code, and then it will run on Windows without complaining. That's the idea. And they're usually companies get code signing certificates, but they're now letting individuals get code signing certificates. You do have to prove your identity, and I guess that's okay. If you were to sign malware, they would block you, and they know who you really are, so you wouldn't be able to get another certificate, I guess. So that's interesting. I'm thinking I might do it. I don't know, my corporation has one, that might be enough. Anyway, this I thought was very interesting. We'd all like to get rid of passwords. They're kind of horrible. And if you, I was at a training today with a lot of professionals admitting that they're still using things like their dog's name and their birthday for their passwords, and using the same password on many sites. A lot of people are still doing that. So when you get over that, which is a terrible practice, then you get to like a password manager like LastPass, where the best way to use it is let it generate like a random 20-character password on every site and a different one for every site. And that's essentially what this does. What it does is your device will authenticate you by a variety of techniques like a facial scan, a thumbprint, or maybe a username and password, but your device just identifies who you are. Then it will generate unique keys and send them to every service you log into. This is how Apple Pay works too. Your credit card is in there, and when you make a transaction, it generates one transaction code it sends for each purchase. So it will send a certificate up to tell the server that I have verified that this person is the right person. And so the server has like a public key to match the private key coming to the phone or something like that. Some kind of public-private key encryption is being used. And the device is responsible for authenticating you, and this is the new system. And they've got it in iPhone, and I think in Android, and to some extent in Windows. It's available now for some services. So this is called passkeys, and it should be the one that replaces passwords. And so helium is a non-renewable resource. It comes from under the earth, and we're almost out of it. And it is necessary for liquid helium to do almost all cryogenics, the most common use of it being medical research, magnetic resonance spectroscopy for medical imaging. And we're running out of helium, and there is no good way to generate more. So people are pretty worried about it. A similar issue is fusion power. Fusion power requires tritium, and we're already almost out of tritium. So they say we expect fusion power to be online in 10 or 20 years, but it won't be able to run for more than a few years because we run out of fuel.
But the tritium is plenty in the ocean, but you have to refine it.
I do not think there's plenty of tritium in the ocean. I think there's almost...
It's abundant.
No, maybe deuterium, but I don't think tritium. Yes, deuterium is there, but not tritium. Tritium is very rare, and it decays in 7 years.
The fusion don't use tritium.
It does. If you use...
They use the deuterium.
No, in the sun, it actually fuses protons. Yeah. But it's easier if you use deuterium, and it's even easier if you use tritium. And the current generation of fusion reactors use tritium to make it easier because the neutrons give it more weight.
But the current one is deuterium.
Yeah, well, this is what I read. They said that they're currently using tritium, and that's why they're going to wear out. If they were using deuterium, there'd be no problem. There's plenty of deuterium.
Yeah.
All right. And so there's a lot of people really talking about turning cells back to younger cells. They can do it with individual cells. They can give them a dose of something and turn fully mature cells back into embryonic fetal cells that are not differentiated yet. So what they're planning to do is to try applying that to dogs and hopefully to humans to run some of your cells back and make them younger. And so right now, they don't have it working, of course. They're talking about it, but many people are taking it serious. They've invested, I think, $3 billion in this. It's the latest fountain of youth, and people are very, very hopeful, as they always are, but they have some science to it, so maybe something good will come of that eventually. And all my life, people have wondered about sugar substitutes like saccharin, and now they're getting some pretty strong evidence that they are, in fact, very bad for you. By the way, sugar is also very bad for you. But they've tried saccharin and these other things like stevia and shown that they do mess up your brain and other things, and they cause diabetes, and they make you more hungry. And this is what people, whenever they brought these things out, people were very skeptical that it was actually going to improve things. But they always legalized them despite the hints of medical problems, because diabetics really wanted them so they could have something sweet since they couldn't have sugar. Anyway, they're still out there. They're still in a lot of products, but this one is unusual. Most of the tests would give a rat like 1,000 times as much as a human would eat to see if it hurt them, but this gave rats the same amount that humans eat, and it still damaged them. So it does seem like those sugar substitutes are not a good idea at all. And this is interesting. They say don't buy the Apple TV because it's totally not worth it. There's a better one coming out like in 10 days, which is usually the case. That's why, and to say this, the price is just going to fall and this thing is no good compared to the next one. So a thing to know in case you were thinking of buying that. Anyway, let me stop this one and get down to the official stuff, if I can figure out where my cursor is.